It's been a while since I've done a live stream, so I figured we would do one tonight. I was trying to actually film a video last night. That didn't go very well. I might get into that a little bit later, but I just figured instead we'll shake things up a bit and do a live stream. I'll set the chat to live chat, so hopefully I don't miss any comments from anybody. I hope everybody in the States had a good Independence Day yesterday. Buzz Bros 1971, hello. Piano concert, welcome. Mr. Railfan, hello. How are you and Nerfcat? I'm doing well, and Nerfcat's pretty good. It's been inside most of today because it's really warm out right now. Late Happy Canada Day. Yeah, thanks. Hello from Alberta, welcome. How are you doing tonight? From Freeman, Virginia. Union Pacific Train Man, hello. Please run a Canadian Pacific. We can definitely make that happen. We'll let these go around a few times first, though. Streamline, hello. Hold on a moment, everybody. Sorry about that, everyone. How would you recommend laying cork roadbed on a curve? Break the strip into two different pieces and pin it down. I did a video a couple months ago where I sort of do that on this layout. It's not perfect, but having some pins certainly helps adjust it. Definitely kind of get the cork pieces to overlap each other a little bit. So you want them to kind of be like that. You don't want to have two cork pieces that are just straight up against each other. It will make it a lot more complicated. You'll end up with weird angles, things like that. Hi Harrison, could you make a video showing how to service and repair locomotives? I have done some general videos, but yeah, I could definitely make some more on those. I mean, the basics of it is just cleaning and lubricating everything. You do that and you're probably going to fix most issues. I mean, some things are a little more complex and you got short circuits and stuff, but that's the basics of it. Hello from Mississippi. I wanted to thank you for informing me about fiberglass pencils. I bought one and used it to restore an old lifelike locomotive, and now it's running great. Keep up the great content. Well, I'm glad to hear that helped. Do you have a Hudson to run? My grandfather operated one before he passed away. Yes, I have a Canadian Pacific Hudson we could probably run in a moment. Hello from California. Hey Harrison, what conductive lubricant do you use on wheels and contacts? I think it's Labelle 103. Looks like we've got a super chat from Aussie Guns. Thank you for the $2. You ever get any Warskill models? No, I haven't got any from those. Would you ever get one? I don't know what those are, to be honest with you. Paul Burns, hello SMT Mainline, how are you doing? How was your holiday weekend? Can you run a DD40AX? My holiday weekend was great for Canada Day. Some friends invited me up to their cottage in Renfrew, Ontario, and we actually went up to some falls, and there was like a natural water slide. It was really cool, so I had a wonderful Canada Day. Yeah, I was saying earlier, not many people were here, but I hope everyone had a wonderful 4th of July in the States, or a wonderful Canada Day if you're from here. Does the Hershey's Chocolate Factory from 1963 still exist today? Sort of. The building itself is still around, and the structure of it, like the beams and everything, are all original. But Hershey's closed the factory in 2008, and then it was actually bought by, let's just call it a herbs and spices factory, and they completely gutted the place. So the structure's still around, but it's not very similar with what it was. It's probably about 50% original. Anyways, I'm going to go get some locomotives that have been requested. We've got a DD40AX as well as a Royal Hudson. Somebody also requested a Canadian Pacific locomotive, which the Hudson actually is, so I guess we take care of that as well. Hi SMT Mainline, hi fan of trains, welcome. Yeah. Run a J class. I don't know if I own one of those. Can we do a Hershey's factory run? We could do one later on. There's currently a passenger train blocking the Hershey's line, but we can move that out of the way. I think we want to focus on getting the Royal Hudson on first, though. All right. Is an Athearn Blue Box C44-9W for $65 a good deal? If it's in good shape and it's got all the handrails, it's in running order, I'd say that's pretty good. It's not the best deal I've seen, but I don't think you'd go wrong with it. What's Model Power? Model Power was a kind of entry-level brand. I think they started in the 60s or 70s. They made pretty good products. They don't exist anymore, but in my opinion, they were producing higher quality products than Lifelike, Bachmann, and Tyco were at the same time. Hey Harrison, I heard Rapido is releasing some Metra bi-levels. You should pick some up for a request on the Metra layout. Not a bad idea. I wouldn't mind buying some Rapido bi-level cars. I already have some bi-level cars, although mine are from Athearn. Zach Luce, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Harrison, what conductive lube do you use? Can you run an Amtrak train of any kind? Yeah, we can definitely run an Amtrak. I think it's Labelle 103. I can't entirely remember, to be honest with you. Last week, I saw Union Pacific 1996, the Southern Pacific Heritage Unit in the middle of a train. Oh, mid-train DPU, eh? All right, we got the Hudson all loaded up here. I'm gonna go look for an Amtrak engine of some sort. The original owner had to have given this thing a serious gear reduction because it's crazy. Like, this is 50% power and it's just creeping along. The performance is beautiful, although it does shorten that one spot for some reason. Can you run the bi-level cars? I don't think I will this live stream because I just put them in storage. And Ozzy says, okay, would you ever get a Pico NCTD Sprinter? Let me look that up. Pico. Let's see. Yeah, I'd buy one of those. It looks very similar to like a Bombardier Talent. I'm guessing that they use those in Australia. It looks almost identical to a Bombardier Talent, actually. I wonder who made those. I don't know. Thanks for pointing me to that. Do you have any African model steam trains? I don't think I do. SMT, I'm your biggest fan. Can you please do some live streams more often? I'll try to. Things have been very busy lately, and I like to do videos more than... Well, it's not that I like doing videos more than live streams. I just, I find people seem to be more interested in the videos than they are the live streams, so I kind of focus on those. But, yeah, I do enjoy doing the live streams as well. Anyways, I think we'll let the Hudson go around for this final lap, and then we'll swap it out for the DD40, and then we'll follow that up with an Amtrak locomotive. How's NerfCat doing? NerfCat's doing well. Hey SMT, I know you said that you shouldn't buy a large HO scale train set, but if that set has a specific locomotive, what if that set has a specific locomotive that you want? Hey man, I mean, if it's got what you're looking for, go for it. My advice was just that I find the smaller train sets from Bachmann are a little bit of a better value for your money, but you know, you should ultimately pick what you want. That's the entire point of the hobby. You know, it's about enjoying it, right? So if that set has something that you want, go for it. Hey SMT, quick question. One of my locomotives wires completely snapped off and I want to know how to fix it. Well, if you don't already have one, you're probably going to have to pick up a soldering iron. They sell them at the hardware store, or you can buy them online. Make sure to get one with some flux. Most people would probably recommend about a 50 watt. I use a 100 watt soldering iron, but that's sort of overkill. SMT, can you run your nicest locomotive and also is your account Creeperish Originals? I watched that back in the day and I saw a short that looked like your layout. Yeah, that was actually my old Minecraft gaming channel. I can't believe one of the viewers here was also a fan of that. That's funny. Yeah, I actually did put a couple train videos on that way back in like 2014, so they might still be online. I don't know how much of that content's still there, but yeah, that was my one of my channels. How much does a soldering iron cost? Probably like 30 bucks, maybe even cheaper. They're not super expensive. Anyways, we'll let the Royal Hudson come around one more time. I got distracted with the comments here. SMT, do you know about the town of Cortland, Illinois? I can't say I do. You should buy some Mexican trains. Ferromex T, FM, ND, and M, and else. I already have an ND, E, and M, but I would like to get a Ferromex train, specifically the GE units. I'm a huge fan of those. Do you have any tips on putting in model bridges? Make sure they're stable on both sides. I mean, obviously the entire weight of the train is on it, so yeah, stabilize it really well. You don't want it tilting. So here is the DD40 as requested. It looks like we got another super chat. Let me go check that out. That sounds like the DD40 is derailed. Yeah, I'll let that re-rail itself. And the super chat is from Mike. Thanks for these videos. Well done. Thank you so much. Oh, looks like the Centennial re-railed itself. Very nice. I just started model railroading. Got any tips? Well, I don't know what you have at the moment, but I would make a list of what you want. Make a list of what you want. Really, the only limits you have in model railroading are space and budget. So I'd make a list and then deduct based off of what your budget is and how much room you've got to work with. Of course, you can always add things on in the future. So I'm just getting my locomotive all going here. Yeah, you can always add things on in the future. So if there's something that you can't afford currently, you know, leave it on the list and then you can add it onto your layout in the future. It's just good to, I think, have some sort of a direction of where you want your layout to go. Should I get an N scale layout or an HO scale layout for my first train set? That depends. If you've got a fair bit of space available, I'd probably go with HO just because it's a little bit cheaper and there are more things available. The trains are a little easier to work with. If you've got less space, I would probably go with N scale just because you can accomplish a lot more with not a lot of space. So yeah, really depends on how much space you've got. Hey SMT, would you ever be interested in running operation sessions? I don't see why not. I've got to get the layout up and running because right now I've got the main line working pretty well, but I need to get this yard fixed, and I also want to expand this freight yard right here, so I have to do that first. How many HO scale containers do you have? Let me see here. Got 8 container cars, or 8 intermodal cars, well cars I should say. So 8 times 2, that would be 8 plus 8 is 16. And I've also got another one, so I've got 17 container cars. SMT, do you still have that Provence and Worcester locomotive? I do. I just ordered a CSX locomotive. Is it good? Or that CSX locomotive. Okay, I was gonna say. Yeah, I've had a pretty good experience with this one. The reviews seem to be pretty good too. So yeah, I think these Walters GP15s are pretty solid. I mean, time will tell. Maybe something will go wrong, but I don't know. I think the Walters are fine for budget engines. Hey Harrison, I just got a Fleshman BR42 warship and I'm trying to make a custom diesel 10. Do you have any tips on customizing? Take your time with it. I mean, that's, I think, pretty obvious. See if you can find parts off of something else. It's amazing, you know, if you find junk lots, especially for off buildings and things like that. Sometimes you can find various parts. I ended up doing a lot of that with my Hershey's factory project, as I'd find little bits and pieces here and there and kind of add them on. Do you have any Norfolk Southern locomotives? I have a couple, yeah. Where did you get the mountains? This mountain right here is a kit from Woodland Scenics, but all the rest over here are ones I actually just built out of scrap cardboard. You just kind of cut out strips of cardboard, you weave it together, you glue it down, and then you cover it in deli paper with an adequate amount of glue. And you know, it's not perfect, but I think it looks half decent. SMT, do you own an HO scale Polar Express? Not currently. That's something I'd like to buy. I wonder if SMT will answer this. I want you to run a B-23 or a U-boat. I think I have a U-boat. Let me have a look here. What's your most reliable locomotive with both DC and DCC? Probably one of my Kato engines. Those are pretty solid engines. I don't think that those would fail anytime soon. So correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this is a type of U-boat. It's a pretty old Athearn engine. I think I paid 20 bucks for it. Gotta say it's been pretty solid for an engine which is probably approaching 60 if it's not already years old. This goes to show you how tough these old Athearns are. Have to get a special car to hook this one up. have a certain car which I use for hooking up cars that have horn hook couplers, and I don't see it on the layout. I wonder where that's at. Sorry I'm late. I had my birthday party this evening. Oh, well, happy birthday. Yeah, I'm not seeing that horn hook coupler car. Hopefully I didn't go put it into storage. Chris Danielle, SMT, any plans to take the railway up to the next level with the Helix? That's been an idea of mine for a while now. I don't really know where I'd add the Helix on, maybe somewhere over here, but I've got all this space under the table here, so theoretically I could build kind of like a mass storage yard down here and then have a Helix. The only thing that kind of sucks about a Helix is that they take up a ton of space, especially if you want to build one with wide enough curves to take full-size trains. So I'm thinking about it, but it's something I want to approach carefully. Check with Nerfcat. The car is probably with him. Yeah, he probably took it. I'm gonna go have a look around here. Could be somewhere in the yard. I don't remember putting it into a bin, but I guess it's not impossible. It's gonna be super annoying if I lost that. I went to Maine Model Works and they said that they were closing. I hope that's not the case. That would be really unfortunate. It was a really nice store. What's the best coupler in your opinion? Katie couplers. I know they make a variety, but I don't know. I used to think that the Bachmann Easy Mate couplers were good because they were super easy to install and you know, they're pretty good at bending around corners and things like that. But to tell you the truth, they're not that good. They don't hold a train very well. They bend a little too easily. The Cadies are expensive, but you know what? They're good old American-made, tried-and-true technology. Everybody seems to like them, so I'd go with Cadies. The reason I asked for a U-boat is because I'm in the Mid-Coast, Maine, and a train service called the Mid-Coast Rail Service runs a B-23 and a U-23 primary unit and only units. Did you know that if you type awesome in the chat without spaces, you get the ultimate 2012 emoji? Oh my goodness. That brings back memories. The GEAC 4400 is on the trash can. Please read this. I didn't throw it away. It's right there on the shelf. Bachmann Easy Mate couplers are not good at all, especially if you're putting them under high stress with the same McHenry couplers. Yeah, that's kind of what I was finding, is when you put together larger trains, they don't seem to work so well. Hello, I'm from Brazil. Do you like items made by Fracci? Yeah. That new engine I bought is okay. It's not the best engine I've ever worked on, but I don't hate it, you know. It seems to work just fine. Time will tell. I've actually ordered a couple more from Fracci just so I can test out more of their products, including a V8, which is a really interesting American/Brazilian locomotive. So I think that that's going to be a lot of fun to test out. I'm considering buying a new locomotive. Are Walters Norfolk Southern 60Ms good locomotives? I don't think Walters is the best manufacturer, but I find they're very good for the money. I've never been disappointed with anything I've bought from them. I've got some really old Walters trainline engines, which I've had since I was a kid. Never given me any problems. So, yeah, I don't think you'd be disappointed with one. Hey SMT, what do you use for editing? I'm curious and trying to start content creation. I use iMovie. Pretty basic stuff, but it doesn't work too bad. SMT, what are your favorite brands of locomotives and why? I like Walters as a good budget brand. I like Kato Locomotives. I find they're another pretty good kind of lower cost brand. Rapido's good. They're higher end, but I've never been disappointed with any of their products. Satherns are pretty solid. Atlas makes good products in my opinion. I don't know, they're all pretty good these days. The only one that I'm a little bit mixed on is Bachmann, but they've certainly improved a lot over the years too, so they're headed in the right direction. I just find their prices following a little quicker than it should be. Anyways, I'm willing to change it up if you guys want to see something else on the main line here. SMT, you should really strip that Fracci G2 and repaint it into a CN colors, which would match the NFID narrow gauge modified to the London Import Stanley. I was thinking about buying a G12 because they still make them, so I think they're about like 50 bucks on eBay, brand new. It's not really a bad deal. Run the coming around the mountain train. Yeah, why not? I have a Walters locomotive and it runs good. It's an SD70AH. Only thing I had to fix was the horn. What kind of Centennial do you have? My dummy is a DD40 AX. It's by Athearn. The other is by Bachmann. Mine is by Bachmann as well. There it is. Gerald Rete, welcome. How about running the Amtrak set? Yeah, sure, we can do that. I'll get these freight cars off the main line. We'll let the coming around the mountain locomotive pull those. Actually, I'm just going to test to make sure this thing runs because I thought it was having a problem last time. It seems okay. One of the best railroads in Brazil is the Vale in Rumo. Well, that's good to know. I ordered one locomotive. I think it's MRS, if I'm not mistaken. It's in kind of a blue and yellow paint scheme. I'm really excited to receive that locomotive because it was actually featured in one of GE's commercials years ago in 2008. They filmed a commercial called Take My Breath Away, which was to reveal their Evolution series locomotives, which they were currently just shipping off to Brazil, as well as sending out throughout the United States and Canada. Have you ever thought about 3D printing your own train parts? Yeah, I'm on the market for a 3D printer. I feel like that would be a very helpful tool. I have to find a 3D printer that has easy to use software, though. I feel like that'd be the biggest learning curve. SMT, you're coming around. The Mountain Locomotive is a Tycho shell on an Atlas chassis. I figured that's what had happened. Pretty smart idea. I mean, I like the old Tycho locomotives, but they're certainly not reliable. Alright, that went well. Loving the layout, it's looking great. Thanks, I've been trying to improve it. I have to service the coming around the Mountain Locomotive. It seems to be having some electrical issues again. I don't know why, it's weird. It's like it has full power and then it just conks out and it's not picking up anything, so I think we'll have to run something else, unfortunately. I have no idea why it does that. Very strange. The wheels look perfectly clean too, so I don't know, maybe the motor's a bit loose. First request I see, if it's a running engine, I'll have that pull it. Can you run any Atlas locomotive? Yeah, I think so. Atlas. I think this one's an Atlas. As a matter of fact, it is. Perfect. But it doesn't have a coupler, so that's not going to fly. Is this one an Atlas? That's a Walters. Just looking. I know I got an Atlas engine not that long ago. Hello from Massachusetts. Welcome. This is on a different shelf. That's an Atlas. What's your favorite N-scale brand? Probably Kato. Kato. I never get it right. Run the Transformers engine. Yeah, we can make that happen. Let me just get this thing rolling. It's Japanese, so it's most likely Kato. Okay. The Railroad of Grotto that you bought is no longer in existence. It's an extinct railroad. Huh. Well, thanks for sharing. I was not aware of that. SMT, in the next live stream, can you run the bi-levels? Possibly so. I just put them in a storage for a little while because I wanted to make some space. Everything was just getting a bit messy. I wonder if this would keep up. Not quite. Kato, you do not pronounce the R. Kind of smells like this locomotive is actually burning a little bit. That's weird. SMT, did you grow up with U or B boats as well as Dash 9s and 8 standard cabs? I'm an 06 guy, so I missed out. I probably encountered them, but, well, maybe not any U-boats, but I'm sure I encountered some standard cab Dash 9s out in Maine. But, I mean, I was born only 5 years earlier, so I don't think it would have made a huge difference. See if this thing is running properly. Looks like it's doing a good speed. And it's conked out. What inspired the name for your channel? What inspired it was in the movie Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or maybe it's Willy Wonka, I can't remember, but the 2005 remake, the chocolate bar in that movie is called like a scrumptious bar. And I was into model trains, and I was big into that movie, so I just kind of combined the two and made Scrumptious Model Trains. It's a pretty weird name, and I had it for a while, but I don't know, it was just a little bizarre, so I changed it to SMT Mainline just to kind of add a little bit more of the railroad flair to it. But yeah, that's how it all started, and that kind of ties in with the Hershey's factory and so on and so forth. SMT, do you have a DD40, not a DD40AX, an Athearn Blue Box, one with 2 motors and one with a single? I have one of those with a single motor, but I don't have any of the dual motor models. Actually, I might. Let me have a look here. A couple months ago, I bought these things off eBay. I think this one might be dual motor. I can't really see. This one's probably a dual motor model. Yes, it is. It's got 2 motor mounts. Oh, so there you have it. I guess I do have one. So we'll test this thing out, see if it can haul these cars around. Can you run a DCC engine? This one right here actually is DCC, and that's why it's producing sound. Did you know that Rivarossi locomotives were distributed by AHM in North America for a while? Yes, I'm pretty sure they were actually built by Mahano, if I'm not mistaken. So you see a lot of old AHM engines. They're labeled AHM or RSO or A-test, which is actually Yugoslavenian radio frequency regulation. But a lot of those engines, you open them up and they're in a Rivarossi box, but you take them out of the package and they're actually branded AHM. So All the manufacturers kind of cross paths in one way or another at some point. You know, I think AHM was a manufacturer as well as a distributor, which is kind of like Walters. Walters makes their own products, but they also distribute other manufacturers' products. It's kind of funny to think, a company selling another one's products as well as making their own. Have you ever counted how many model trains you have? I did about a month ago. I think I've got about 500 engines. Not every one of them's in working order. All right, let's see if this one's got any gusto. Hey SMT, I don't know why, but I always confuse AHM and IHC. Well, I'm pretty sure AHM and IHC were somewhat, to some extent, the same brand for a while. I know Mahano and IHC were. And as I said, Mahano and AHM were the same, so I don't know, maybe somebody can explain that. Something is not right about this locomotive. The motors sound good, but it's hardly moving. I think we've got a truck which is not turning. Huh, weird. I think one of the motors isn't running. That'll be a fun project. Best luxury train rides in the world. Number 1, the Eastern Oriental Express. 2, Rocky Mountaineer. 3, the Deccan Odyssey. 4, the GAN. 5, the Venice Simplon Orient Express. It might be gummed up. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It could be seized. SMT, what company would you say is best by quality, running, and looks? Probably Kato. Either Kato or Walters. They're both pretty solid manufacturers. Kato's a little more expensive, but I think might be slightly more reliable. No traction. Well, the front ones are turning fine. I don't think it's a traction issue. I think the rear trucks are just not firing up. The motor just probably became loose on the old Atherns. If those motor mounts fail, the motor lifts up off the chassis and then it no longer is connected to ground, so it just shuts down. Pretty easy thing to fix, but it's a common problem. I guess we could find out what's in that other Athern box. Yeah, it's a freight car kit. I'm pretty sure I've got 2 of those engines, though. Let's go have a look for that. Brazilian miniatures are less detailed than the American ones. They have a 3-pole motor and are also less powerful. I wish they would opt for a 5-pole. I feel like that small upgrade would really make those locomotives run a lot better. And I have no doubt that a 3-pole motor is probably a lot cheaper than a 5-pole, but you would think it would be cheaper to put 1 5-pole into a locomotive than 2 3-poles. I'm sure it would perform better. A wire to frame can fix that. You can't really do that with an Athern. I mean, you could, but I mean, the entire problem is based on the fact that the motor mounts have gone bad or are loose, which is something that needs to be fixed anyways. I think this one is a single motor model. It is, you can tell, because there are only motor mounts on one side. And it's got horn hook couplers, so I can't pull these cars with it, but we'll see if it will fire up. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, this one's got lots of get up and go. Just gotta love the old Atherns. I have a DCC Athern DD40. Single motor, the locomotive does not have very much weight, so it's not super strong. SMT, with regards to that Ferteschi model, do you find that the motor runs hot? I don't think the electrical systems between Canada and Brazil are the same. Would that make a difference? It says on the box that it runs on 15 volts maximum DC, so it's all in spec. You're not wrong. I think that there is a voltage difference between Brazil and Canada, but of course the controller converts that to the same amount. So, you know, that's why you can take a train. Like in England, they use 240 volts. Here we only use 110 or 120. But that doesn't matter because the voltage coming out of the controller is the same. The controller does the conversion for you. So, of course, you can't plug an American controller into a foreign socket. But if you take a British train controller and run an American locomotive with it, it will be fine. If that makes sense. One more of those locomotives. I'll see if I can find it. I do not see it. That makes sense. Thanks. I made a live stream for the first time. Any tips for me? I'm starting a layout with my dad, and he has his old stuff from the 70s and 80s, which he got when he was a kid. If you're starting with stuff from the 70s and 80s, definitely get yourself a proper track cleaner, because stuff from back then is brass track. If you've got the means, I'd probably just upgrade it to nickel silver and just keep the original locomotives. But if you intend on using the original track, get yourself a track cleaner and scrub it all down, and buy yourself some new rail joiners, because those will make a big difference. Other than that, just have fun with it. I've got lots of videos on here on how to kind of fix up certain locomotives, so you can follow those and hopefully get those all running right. If the motor runs hot, check to make sure the drive is not binding or dragging. That's a very good tip. Find usually if a motor is running hot, you see it in the performance though. Like it will sound bad. Are you thinking about buying one of the Rapido steam locomotives? It's very tempting, but those things cost an arm and a leg, so I don't know. I'll have to see what my wallet will allow. Please run the John Deere engine. Running hot is probably pulling too much current. Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, the current is how efficiently the motor is turning over. So if it's turning efficiently, it's not generating a lot of heat. If it's turning inefficiently, it's generating too much heat, and then that's where you get an overheated armature. And the problem with an armature is that the little coatings on the windings, if they get too hot, they will start to crack, and that's where you get a shorted armature. So if it gets hot for a few seconds, it's probably not enough to damage it. It's if you run these things hot for like a couple minutes, that's where you get into real trouble. Tyco True Steel Track is actually pretty good, despite what most people say, at least in my experience. Yeah, steel track will work. You just have to clean it a lot more. It helps if you keep it in a dry place. I think the thing that really kills steel track is if it's somewhere humid, because it will start to rust, and that's a pretty big problem, obviously. Anyways, here's my brand new Ferteschi locomotive. We'll see how this thing goes pulling those cars around. I gotta say that ever since the couple hiccups I had when I first got it, this engine has actually been pretty good, so I'm happy to see that. Please run the Chesapeake and on Fire locomotive. Sure. Good day. Could you please get the green Brazilian train running? Well, that's good timing. Yeah, the Chesapeake and on Fire. We can definitely run that. Do you have a Crazy Eights locomotive? I've been on the market for one, but those are pretty rare. I think they're kind of sought after. One of the 3 largest railroads in Brazil is called the Carajá, or the EFC. It's operated by Val. Please run the subway trains. Yeah, we could definitely run those. I think I'll take the CSX freighter off the main line here. We'll get the Chesapeake on fire going. And then after a moment, we'll get the subway cars going. The subway cars might run the same speed as the Teshi here, so maybe we could run them together. I don't know. Let's play around with it. Harrison is 21. I'm 22 now. How time flies. Yeah, when I started this channel, I was about I was 15 when I started this channel. Good God, time really does fly. I have to count back a little bit. All right, there goes the Chesapeake and on fire. This engine affectionately got its name after it actually kind of burned up shortly after I got it. Oh man, doesn't seem to be running all that well. Did you make your unstoppable locomotive work? I want to make them, but I don't want to ruin any of the locomotives. They're none on eBay except for the locomotive that was weathered and damaged. I didn't build the locomotive myself. I ordered it from an eBay account called Ginfire. Everybody knows who Ginfire is. They make some pretty creative stuff. But yeah, it's definitely possible. They sell decals, but it really does depend on what you want to put up for risk. Sometimes you can find a Dash 9 pretty cheap, but they are rare. I don't know why this thing is having so many derailing issues. So we'll retire that one early. You know that Tyco made a train called the Silver Streak. It's so cool. I have motives. They're pretty groovy looking with the silver design. But yeah, those were all old power torques, and the power torques are not very reliable. They're very easy to fix, but I don't know. We'll try to run one. I don't know if it's actually going to work. Are those pickups dirty or are the motors just bad? I think it's a mix of both. Here it is, the famous Silver Streak with the beautiful chrome. Somebody, I think, laid this one down, put it on some newspaper during storage, and it kind of messed up some of the paint. But anyways, we'll try to run this one. I don't know how far it's going to get because these are not excellent locomotives, but you never know. Oh yeah, there you go. Ooh, it's shorted. Why is it doing that? That is weird. Must have a loose wire in it or something. Yeah, that's about as far as I thought we might get. Did you know that Tyco in their final years offered the same sets with Mahano locomotives instead of Power Torques? I think they only made those for about a year, but that must have been such a time to be around as a Tyco collector. You know, you finally have a cool design of Tyco engines with the reliability of Mahano. This is my first time on the channel, and I haven't watched more than 2 minutes. Love the channel. Well, I'm glad to hear it. That's very kind. So it does appear that the Brazilian engine's slightly faster than the subway cars, so I think we'll back the subway train onto the other line, and that should fix that problem. Actually, what I'll do here is I'll get the wireless system going, and we can actually walk around the layout, run trains that way. Let me just get this thing going here. Alright, I'm all connected to the server, and I forgot to pull the switch. Hold on. Okay, very good. It's too bad Mahano doesn't make stuff in North America anymore. They had some nice budget stuff, and which is something we're really missing in the hobby. I completely agree. Mahano is like the perfect blend of quality locomotives at a good price. You could buy those grocery store train sets which have Mahano steam engines, which are terrific, for $50. You really don't see that anymore. And even today, those engines are still way better than anything Bachmann has produced. Can you show me your DCC controller? This is it. It's a Digitrax DCS51, and it's also got a Wi-Fi substation, so I can actually control it wirelessly with my cell phone here. Pretty good little setup. I have all 11 of the President's Choice train sets. Yeah, those are all great. I remember as a kid, I loved it around Christmas time, going into the grocery stores and seeing actual HO scale sets. And that was the amazing thing. It was a starter set, and the cars and track were kind of crummy, but the locomotives, man, those things were golden. Where's your Swedish Railways E2 locomotive? It's on the layout over by the station there. Way better than Bachmann's set. Yeah, they're super reliable. Please put the Redbirds on a flatbed. That would be fun. Someone was suggesting that. They sent me an email of when they brought these things in. Had them all loaded up on a train. SMT, you need to run the big boy if you still have it. Run it with some cargo containers. We could probably make that happen. Maybe we'll do that at the end of the stream. Hey, SMT, my Bachmann Spectrum locomotive will go the opposite direction no matter what I do. Any tips? Go the opposite direction. Well, if it's DC, it should go the other way so long as you flip the power. I mean, there's not really a way around that. If it's DCC, that sounds like a decoder issue. I'd probably try to do a factory reset. If you're saying it goes the opposite direction as opposed to other locomotives, though, that just means the motor was wired backwards. How many pancake drive engines do you have? I'd probably say around 50 between the Lifelike, Tyco, and Bachmann engines. No swearing. Yeah, was I swearing? I don't remember saying any swears. Do you ever have problems programming with your Zephyr? I bought one used, and every time I try to change an address, it either gives an error or a busy signal. I have had some problems with a couple of older decoders, but that's been it. Making sure that the program track is properly wired is a pretty important part. It was not you swearing, Harrison. It was someone in the comments. Oh, all right. I thought I slipped up. The problem is when I'm working on boat engines and things like that, or building stuff, you know, I'd have a little bit more of a vulgar vocabulary, but on here I try to keep it a little cleaner, so sometimes I'm not paying attention. I'm trying to program on the main track, not a Oh, well, I don't think you can program on the main line with a Zephyr. So that's your problem. So the reason it's saying busy, it's because the controller doesn't detect anything. So you need to wire up a second piece of track to separate terminals on the controller. There's a tutorial online on how to do that. And then that's how you take care of it. It's a little bit of an inconvenient design. I think the idea is so that if you have a bunch of engines placed on the layout, you don't have to take them all off in order to do programming. But yeah, it's a little unusual. What trains are you running? We got a AC44I and an R17 New York City subway. I like the Brazilian engine. It seems decent. I'm curious to see how it holds up in the long term. Somebody was saying they bought one and it only lasted a year, but it doesn't seem that bad, really. The Digitrack Zephyr 52 can program on the main line. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Do you have 844? No, I don't have that locomotive. Some locomotives you can program on the main line with the Zephyr. MTH HO locomotives can be equipped with an old MRC sound decoder as well. Oh, okay. Any tips on how to solve a squeaking locomotive? Oil. Oil and grease. If something's squeaking, it's probably a dry bearing. What's the best layout for starter sets? Best layout, well, if you're just asking what kind of starter set you should get, I'd probably just go with a really cheap Bachmann starter set. Bachmann's not the best manufacturer, but they do make the cheapest starter sets by a long shot, so just, I don't know, go to your hobby shop or go on Amazon, something like that. See what you can find and just find a cheap one. Probably add some Walters equipment to it. That's what I would do. The funny thing is that a Bachmann starter set is about half the price of a Walters set, but a Walters locomotive on its own is cheaper than a Bachmann one. So that's kind of my logic there. The Walters engine's better quality and it's cheaper than the Bachmann, but for an entire train set, the Bachmann one is cheaper. I have no idea why they're like that. Do you have an EMD G12? I do, yeah. It's another Brazilian locomotive, also by Frateschi. Would you like to run trains for a real job? I think working on a railroad would probably be fun at certain times. I don't really live near too many railroads. I don't really like the idea of... I'm more of a homebody. I don't know. Traveling's fun, but being in day in, day out, working on the railroad, going on long trips, I don't know if that's what I'd want, to be honest. SMT, how would you make grass stick to a layout? Get yourself some Elmer's glue, water it down, maybe make like a 2 parts Elmer or a half and half mixture of Elmer's glue and water, spread it out, and then just lay the grass down on top of that. I find that works pretty well. Would you recommend building a layout on carpet floors? Don't do it. If you run locomotives on carpet, the little fibers will work their way into the motor and the gearbox, and they'll screw up the drive. So yeah, you never want to run your trains on carpet. Always run them on cement floors or hardwood or anything that doesn't have fibers. Fibers are the big problem. Even if you can find yourself a piece of plywood to set your trains up on, that would be a million times better than carpet. It's insane the amount of old power torques I open up, and they have all this red carpeting back from the 70s when everyone was using the classic shag carpeting. They were just setting up their track right on the floor, and the engines were chewing it up. What's the best DCC system? I can't really say. I use a DCS51, but I haven't worked with many other DCC controllers, so I don't want to speak when I haven't had, when I can't really compare. Everyone requesting that I run the G12. Paul Mitchell, I've been watching your channel for a couple months. I'm glad you're sticking around. It does work on carpet in the short term, in good shape, if it doesn't have too many long strands. Sam's Trains runs his trains on carpet after all. No, this is no disrespect towards Sam's Trains, but I wouldn't do it. It does not seem like a good idea. I mean, yeah, for a little while, it's gonna take time before the engine, you know, chews up little fibers and it gets caught in the gearbox. And if you clean your engines out often enough, it won't have a negative effect. But you know, not everybody maintains their engines, and I think it's just inevitable that if you're running, you know, your trains on something made of little fibers, it's going to get caught in the gearbox. I even had problems because I was running trains on the floor and I have a cat. The locomotives were pulling up little pieces of cat fur. So if that can happen on a hardwood floor with a cat, it can definitely happen on a carpet. Don't run trains on carpet ever. I completely agree, yeah. Use easy track on carpet. I mean, easy track would be better because you've got roadbed, but even then, I wouldn't count on it. What about roadbed? I use Kato, U-Track. Those are pretty good at keeping carpet out. I ran easy track for years on carpet, no issues. Oh, that's good to hear. It definitely would help. I don't know, like if a locomotive derailed, but it was, you know, the back wheels are on the track, the front ones are off the track, and it's running on the carpet like that, I could see it causing issues. Definitely a huge improvement, though. The worst thing anybody could do would be to take your classic, you know, snap track, put it together on the carpet. That will definitely cause problems, especially the old Tyco Power Torques, because they've got the exposed gearboxes. Like, it's just such a recipe for disaster. I really like your context. How do you find so many locomotives? I'm always on the hunt. I'll be looking on eBay, going to train stores, going to train shows. They're out there. You just, you know, always be looking for deals. Hey, SMT, I accidentally put a screwdriver on my track and it caused a short circuit. Will my locomotive be okay? Oh, yeah. If the controller is still working, it's fine. The worst thing you can do is just force a short circuit for a long time, but a momentary short is not going to really damage anything. Hello from Indiana. I noticed you got some German-style rolling stock. Do you have any German or British locomotives available to run? I've got some British engines. I don't know if this stuff actually is from Germany, though. These passenger cars are Swedish. The freight cars might be German. I'm not 100% sure. If you absolutely have to run a train on carpet, lay down a bed sheet first. That would probably help. I mean, even putting some paper under the track, really just anything to separate it from the carpet will help. What's better, DC or DCC? It really depends on what you're using. If you want to be doing op sessions and stuff, I'd probably go with DCC. But if you just want to run some trains around a circuit, kind of like what I'm doing now, go with DC. It's way cheaper. Sounds like we've got some sort of a derailment going on. Oh, this is not looking good here, folks. DCC. I made a roadbed out of cardboard. Hey, not a bad idea. I'm still working on a track plan. I can't wait to get my locomotives up and running as soon as I move to the next step. That's always the most exciting part. You know, just turning something in theory into a reality. The G12 shoving the coaches fell off. I mean, it made it a couple laps, but yeah, I guess it was a little bit too much weight. DC is good for switching. Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of locomotives pushing trains, apparently the Union Pacific Big Boy 4014 actually rescued a freight train on a main line. One of their diesel units broke down, and the Big Boy was right behind it. So the crew just asked if they could push the train using the Big Boy. So for the first time since it's been restored, it was actually hauling freight again in some sense, which is pretty cool. Oh man, you can hear the ballast actually in the wheels. How do you add grip to train wheels and not cause wheel slip? The biggest way to reduce wheel slip is if you have any room inside the locomotive, add some lead to it. Adding a little bit of weight can always help. There are products out there which can help with wheel slip. You can create traction tires. It's this product called Bullfrog Snot. I've never personally used it, but I've heard good things about it. The only drawback with that is that you're going to reduce the amount of contact area for the wheel to pick up power, so that will not help. Traction tires will not stop wheel slip. I don't love traction tires, but they do help with wheel slip, especially if you've got a light locomotive. You can pull way more with traction tires. There are drawbacks to traction tires. Mainly that they have to be replaced, and the fact that they can actually burn out your motor if you're not careful. But in certain applications, they are very good. All right, looks like we got the derailment all tidied up here. Hello from Australia. Can't wait for me to get my first N scale layout. If you could, can you run an Australian locomotive? Yeah, absolutely. We'll get the, I guess the Brazilian. We'll get this one off the main line and the G12, and we'll get probably the B class on. I place a half sheet of plywood under my Christmas tree and wrap a white sheet over it, then put my train over the sheet. The plywood keeps the train away from the living room carpet. Yeah, that's genius. SMT, are you in Canada or the United States? I'm in Canada. Huge fan of the United States, though. I go down there usually, I don't know, probably 5 times a year. I think I did the math once. Through all those vacations I've gone on to the States in my life, I think I've lived something like 1.5 years of my life in America. Do you have any Japanese locomotives? I feel like I do. Can't think of any off the top of my head. Hopefully this thing won't have any derailing issues. It kind of was last time. I've started doing this thing where I do maintenance on basic fixes, random trains, rolling stock before I go to bed. My sleep schedule is ruined because of it. I'm surprised that wouldn't help. I find that kind of stuff very relaxing. This channel rules in terms of model trains. Thanks. Gluing down ballast, use wet water, combination of water and dish soap, soak it down, and then spray Woodland Scenic Cement over the ballast. I usually just use watered down Elmer's glue, but I'm sure Scenic Cement would work well too. I just like the Elmer's glue because it's super cheap. Oh man, the Australian locomotive already derailed. I think I'm going to have to rebuild the curve on the side of the layout. A lot of things seem to be derailing here. the Walters Bright Boy or whatever it's called is very good for cleaning wheels and track. I find it is. Not everybody likes track cleaners, but the thing that they do really well is that they actually they scrape off the tiniest bit of the metal. They're almost like a light sandpaper, and what's good about that is over time the metal oxidizes, and when you run something that's abrasive over that, you actually scrape off the oxidization and clean the surface. Now, of course, you've exposed the metal, so it's not great. It'd be good to put something over that, but it will remove the oxidization. Scenic cement doesn't have the same sheen as Elmer's glue. You would have to use weathering powders to take down the sheen. I haven't noticed any issues with the sheen. I find, this all looks pretty dull. Maybe if you use too much, but again, I'm using diluted Elmer's glue, so that probably helps. I'm sure if you used pure Elmer's glue, you probably would stumble into some problems. For wheel cleaners, I like using isopropyl alcohol. It works pretty well. Isopropyl alcohol is very good at removing carbon and oil deposits, but it will not remove oxidization. In fact, it will make oxidization worse. So yeah, if you just need basic track cleaning, just get oil and grime off, it will work. But if you've got crummy old track or even modern track that just has a lot of wear on it, it's not going to do much. Hornby Acela. Is Hornby actually making a Acela train? Can you please run your BNSF SD40-2? Stop ignoring me. Oh, not these comments again. BNSF-2. Somebody sent one of those in recently, yeah. It's probably in this section right here. I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's in the other section. Hornby made an Acela for their AGV tooling. I was not aware of that. That's interesting. I'm not seeing the BNSF engine. I definitely have it. I probably just put it into storage somewhere where I forgot. Yeah, I'll go with the -9 instead. What's your favorite type of locomotive? Probably, I don't know, in general locomotives, it would probably be either a P42 or an AC 4400/-9. Otherwise, it's the Swedish E2. I'm just very attached to that type of locomotive because when I was younger, my grandfather lived beside a tourist railroad, and it was a Swedish import, which they used to run on there. So since I grew up with it, I quite like those. I've actually got a model of one right here. DC is dead. Oh, there's still tons of people out there who like DC. DC's still got tons of life in it. Harrison doesn't ignore comment. It's very hard to be running trains and reading comments at the same time when there's 220 people commenting. Please be patient. That's just it. There's never any intentional ignoring. Sometimes I do maybe miss a comment or two because I'm putting a train on the track, but I never single anybody out and say, oh, I think today I'm going to just ignore this guy. That sounds like fun. It's nothing like that. The only comments I won't read is when somebody's saying something unsavory. I'm obviously not going to read that out, but no, otherwise I'll read anybody's comment. DC forever. That's it, yeah. Well, that didn't go so well. Can you run the Wakefield train to the Hershey's factory? Probably be more fitting to run a Hershey's train to the Hershey factory. Why are these not coupling? Did I seriously break a coupler? There we go. Why do steam engines cost so much? They're far more complicated to put together. Another day of asking SMT to run rarely used engines. Could you please run the Seaboard Coastline Switcher? Interesting choice. I'll see if I can find it. Okay, that's really weird. That thing never derails. Maybe I'll try running things in the other direction. Maybe that will work better. I don't buy my stuff used. I respect that. It's not really for everybody. If you want stuff to be, kind of somewhat guaranteed to be reliable right out of the box, it's probably better to buy brand new. I personally love buying stuff used because I like fixing it up and kind of changing it up, making it the way I want it, but it's all a matter of preference. The NSF engine's definitely derailed. Is it going to derail itself? Yes, it did. Very good. I love those Redbird NYC cars. Yeah, me too. I think they look great. So you run the train in one direction, the locomotive derails. You run the train in the other direction, and the train derails. What do you make of that? I don't know. Maybe it's time to retire the passenger cars and run something else. Probably I'll take the freight cars out of the main. We'll take the container cars out because we haven't run those yet. We'll put the passenger cars in their place, and then we'll run some sort of train Hershey's. Hey, SMT, can you run the trolley car? Yes, let me just get these passenger cars out of the way. My favorite railroad is Canadian Pacific because of the color scheme. I like it too. I think Canadian Pacific has a pretty cool paint scheme. I don't know what to think of their new paint scheme, because originally everybody was saying that they weren't going to change the paint scheme. They were just going to keep using the Canadian Pacific paint scheme for Canadian Pacific. For Kansas City Southern, they were just going to keep using the current Kansas City Southern paint scheme. Recently, they released a prototype for their future locomotives, and it looks really strange. It's supposed to be a hybrid of the two, but I just find it looks a little off. Can you please run the Microsoft Train Simulator Police Locomotive? We can definitely run that. You gotta have another getaway train to be chasing it or something like that. I don't know. Let me get these passenger cars off the main line. All right, very good. Harrison, stop ignoring me and run a CSX locomotive. All right, well, I'll get that on. Not everyone can afford the newer DCC trains, so getting older DC trains can allow them to enjoy the hobby, not to mention there is a lot of nostalgia for some older DC trains. That's a very fair point. Also, that's probably one of the reasons I like DC is that it's probably about half the cost of DCC when you factor in the controller and the types of locomotives. As we speak, I'm putting ballast on my first layout. Made this scenic glue from matte Mod Podge water, soap, and spray IPA puddle scenic glue. SMT, you forgot to do my request. Whip out the Seaboard Coastline switcher. I don't know which engine that is. I'll have a look for it, but I don't recall having a Seaboard Coastline switcher. I got that larger one. I don't know if you'd qualify that as a switcher, though. I'm trying to think back. CSX engine's not sounding very happy. Ah, there it is. I knew about this engine, but for some reason I was thinking of the other Seaboard Coastline paint scheme. You know, the one all in black. How do I get ballast on my turnouts without messing up the switching? Be conservative with the amount of ballast you put down on the switches. That's a good start. And second, before you go gluing anything down, make sure the switches can actually move properly. That's a very important thing. Take a paintbrush through the frog of the switch, all the little gaps. Usually if you do that, you won't run into too many issues. Seaboard Coastline engine's getting really close to the back of that freighter. And now it's shorted. Is there anything else from Jayco that caught your eye when you bought the Swedish E2 steam locomotive? There were some other steam locomotives which looked pretty nice. They're also expensive that I don't know if I'm going to buy another one, but yeah, I don't know. Since I like the E2 and there was a lot of similar Swedish engines, there were definitely some pretty sharp looking engines in there. Can you please run a British diesel that's not an Intercity 125? I don't know if I have any other working British diesels at the moment. It's gonna crash into the back of that freighter. Can you do a Canadian Pacific and KCS doubleheader? I have a KCS locomotive, but I don't think it would run the same pace. So if you're gonna doublehead locomotives, you either need to speed match them with DCC or they just need to be the same brand. Hey Harrison, I don't know if you've heard, but Main Model Works is closing. Their last day is July 15th. Yeah, somebody else was mentioning that in the stream earlier. I'm really sorry to hear that. It was a really nice little operation they had going there. When I doublehead locomotives, I do it and I deal with the repairs later. Why did both of those stop? They will remain open as an online business, and we'll keep an eye out for retail space they can afford. Well, I hope they're successful at opening something else back up. I thought that was a really nice store. The people working there were super nice, and apparently the guy who owns it is really kind. I think that last car must have derailed. Hey, SMT, I sent you an email regarding the Johnny Cash set. Take a look at it when you can. All right. It's funny, I thought I'd responded to that email earlier today. Markland/Trix has an F-Class steam locomotive in a Danish livery that comes with sound out of the box. It's Swedish largest passenger express locomotive. I think you should have a look at it. Well, I will keep that noted. Have you had any time to fix the Oldsmobile? Kind of. I actually took it to a mechanic who's doing some work on it. Sorry there, folks. Looks like the train has become disconnected again. That's weird. Yeah, so I actually took the Oldsmobile to a mechanic because I was doing some work on it, and I discovered that the exhaust manifold was completely cracked in a couple places. No idea how a cast iron piece of metal like that cracks, but anyways, those bolts were rusted on there so badly, I knew there was no way with the tools I have to get them off, so I hauled it off to my mechanic. He's got the old manifold off, which apparently was a really difficult job, and I ordered some brand new manifolds for it, which are larger than the old ones, so it should increase the performance of the engine a tiny bit. Probably not by any significant mark, but yeah, hopefully it will roll out of there running a little bit better. Yeah, I think this summer I'm gonna try to sink a bit of money into it. I'd love to buy it a new carburetor and a new distributor. I feel like that would really improve it. We'll take the subway cars off the main line and run something else. Have you ever heard of the Chinese ND5? They are GE-7s exported to the Far East. I wasn't aware GE exported engines that far away. That's interesting. I'd like to have a look at those at some point. Let's take that off here. What's the best track to start with a 4x8 layout? For switches, I would go with Pico. For a regular track, I would just go with Atlas. As long as it's nickel silver, it should be good. I mean, nickel silver is a lot more expensive than brass, but honestly, it does pay off in my opinion. Wow, that Spectrum engine sounds like junk. I think it's powering through it. I use Atlas True Track on my layout. Huh. Almost seems like it's spun something in the drive. When you said the train stopped, they stopped at the stoplight. It's just funny because both locomotives stopped in the same spot at the same time. Completely unrelated, just one of those weird coincidences. Code 83 and Code 83 Atlas Track are not that compatible. If you look at the web, the rail is not the same. You'll have to squash the rail joiners to get them to connect properly. I'm using Code 100, so I don't know if there's a difference there, but I haven't noticed such a thing connecting. Like I use Atlas Track for all of my straights and the curbs, but all these switches are by Pico. The Pico switches cost more than the Atlas ones, but I'm starting to find that they're a better product. I find I have less derailments with my equipment. The switches lock. They look a little more realistic. I feel like they're worth the money, honestly. Could you please run your Union Pacific -9? Yeah, sure. I saw the video on the R17 subway cars. I rode them in my days growing up. Do you prefer steam or diesel locomotives? I don't find they're compatible. Like, I mean, I like the simplicity of diesel locomotives, but a steam engine is far more exciting. I don't know. I know that's a lame answer, but I just don't feel like you have to pick. I think they're both great. It's almost like comparing the Ruffles all dressed flavored chips to Vicky's pepper chips. You know, there's not really it's kind of a draw. I just joined the live stream. Could you try and run one of your favorite locomotives? Yeah. Get this going first. GE exported several diesels to China, like the NJ2 and the HXN5. The stream is fine for me. It's strange. You're not the only one having problems either. Yeah, I don't know. We might be having some server issues, or it could just be my Wi-Fi, honestly. Why do model cars for train layouts cost so much? I don't know. I feel like manufacturers for everything in the model railroading industry have just been really raising their prices in the last few years without improving their products. Yeah, I wish I had a simple answer. I am going to be doing a review, though, because recently I've been buying, kind of discount things off Amazon to fill up the layout. And some of the products are not bad. Like, I was able to buy a lot of, I think it was either 30 or 50 cars. Super cheap. I think these things are like 50 cents a pop. And, it shows, like, this is nowhere near as detailed as a Woodland Scenics product, but it's so cheap that from a distance, if you want to put them in the background, it's kind of hard to notice. So, yeah, going to be probably doing some reviews on some of the budget products. See if the train works a little bit better in this direction. I think that thing should function. Here's something that I found really interesting, though. It's on Amazon. You can buy these little boxes of figures. I think this thing costs like $20, and it has 75 figures in it. Anyway, I find that is actually a pretty good value for your money. What do your relatives or friends think of your hobby? I would say everybody is very supportive of it. I think a lot of people, not everybody gets it, especially when they can't actually see it in person, but the majority of people think it's cool. Back when I was in high school, there was some guys who, kind of made fun of me for liking the trains and stuff like that, but who cares? If it's a hobby that you like, just stick with it. And people that really matter in my life, my close friends, my girlfriend, and my family, they're all super supportive of the hobby. So that's really what matters. Do you have any interest in Chinese locomotives? I'm kind of fascinated by Chinese steam locomotives because a lot of them are basically knockoffs of American steam locomotives, but they're actually still doing work. So you can see videos of these old steam engines in China, and they're hauling coal. I'm very fascinated by those. I think it's sort of interesting that there's still steam being used in the 21st century. And of course, there are still steam engines in the United States and Canada, but most of those are just out for excursions. They aren't hauling freight. You missed a super chat. Can you run the T1 on a fast freight? Okay, it just came in. It's overlaid with a bunch of other messages, though. But thank you, Old Bay Rail fan. Do you plan on making a main line that encompasses all three sections of the layout, a main section, mountain, and the Hershey factory? I'm considering it. If I built one for the Hershey's factory, I think I would have to build some sort of a really long bridge, which you see at train shows, to connect this area. But it's not impossible that I could build a line off here, run it through here, through the back of the factory and out here. Be pretty elaborate to do that, but it's far from impossible, that's for sure. I hope I didn't lose the connection. It looks like it went offline for a moment there. We lost signal. Yeah, it said that on here for a moment. Well, it seems to be running pretty well. Hey, SMT, I hope you're having fun. Did you hear that Canadian Pacific 2816 is back in Steam? Yeah, my friend, not Liam, Nick was sending me pictures of that. Hey, SMT, can you make a mega train of dummy units? We tried to do that in a previous stream and it didn't go all that well. How much stuff did you use on your layout that I sent you? Well, Peter, I did use some of the horses that you sent. And... gee, what else? I don't know. I think some of the figures that were sent in were from you, Peter. I'm quite impressed. This engine is running a lot better than I remember. Run the Montana rail link. Okay. Run that. And I did say earlier that I was going to run the big boys. So I think we'll run that as a final train on the stream here. And I'm going to clean up my workbench because kind of made a great big mess of the place. Do a whistle blow. It doesn't have a whistle. You have a 4449 intermodal. I think the daylight is still broken. I have to repair that. I have signal now. I don't know what happened. Yeah, I don't know. Something's going on here. Do you have any Monon locomotives? Not currently. It's the Blue Goose running. I can't remember if I fixed that one or not. I don't know, maybe we should quickly test it out. Can you whip out the CN dummy unit? I don't know which engine that is. CN dummy unit. Are you talking about the AWVR unstoppable unit? Huh, the track is coming up. Weird. Harrison, have you looked at 3D printed gears for the Bachmann Daylight? I'm not aware of anybody that makes them, and I don't currently have a 3D printer. It would be good if somebody could come up with a solution for that. Let's see if this thing runs. SMT, you didn't do my request to run your favorite locomotive. Well, I ran the -9 earlier. It's shorted. I don't remember it having that problem. All right, well, I think we'll get the big boy on and then we'll call it a night. I sent you gears for the Daylight. Well, I'll have a look then. There we are. Could you whip out the CN dummy unit? I don't know which engine that is. I'd run it if I knew what you were talking about, but I don't know which engine you're referring to. You can find 3D printed gears for Bachmann split frames on Shapeways. I found they worked fairly well. Well, that's good to hear. It'd be really good if we could salvage some of these old Bachmann split frame motors. They were obviously not the greatest, but it would be nice if, you know, in 20 years' time there are still some actually working, because right now they're breaking by the day. Of course, derails. Final train of the night, and we have a derailment right in the middle of the train. Ay, ay, ay. Do you keep the box as the trains come in? I usually do for a little while, just so that if I'm missing a part or something, I can dig through the box and make sure that I have everything. I also sometimes keep certain boxes around because I ship out, you know, giveaway prizes, and also, you know, I've like sold some boat parts and things like that online, so I keep the boxes around for that. So yeah, I try to save as much cardboard as I can. I don't really want to recycle too much of it. SMT, do you have any experience with swapping out Bachmann horn hook couplers with loop couplers and Cadies? I'm not really sure how you would go about doing that, to be honest. Katie does sell coupler boxes, so maybe you could just remove the current coupler box and replace it with one of theirs. Because if you're talking about those old coupler boxes that are on the box cars and tank cars and stuff, where you got that spring you pull out, you can put a regular coupler in there, but it's going to be very loose. It will work, but it's kind of risky. Controller Packers, welcome to the live stream. We're actually just about to finish things up pretty soon here, but we're on the big boy as kind of like a final train of the night here, if we can get it to work. What is going on? We see Nerf Cat. I don't know if he's inside or not. How was your 4th? I was out on a camping trip on the 4th of July, but it was good. Okay, I think I know what might be going on here. I think the one of the pipes on the front of the locomotive has done something stupid. Let me see here. I don't know. Sometimes what happens is there's a certain pipe and it has to go up into the boiler, and if it doesn't, it can cause the whole drive to kind of sit off kilter. I thought was what was going on, but now I'm starting to think maybe it's something else. So that looks pretty normal to me. Alright, okay, maybe this is broken, I don't know. Like it's, for some reason, the front truck is not sitting on the track. Why would that be? Hey, Harrison, we have two big boys 411s. I got a GS4 and I am buying a set of 3D printed gears for it. Norfolk Western number 600. Well, thank you so much for the super chat there, Kevin. Well, I will be dipped. It's still not sitting on the track correctly. North Country Trains. Hey, Harrison, I'll be heading up your way next Tuesday, taking the Via to Ottawa. Oh, that's cool. What? This is going to drive me insane. Something's changed up front here. Anyways, well, I think we're just going to roll with it and just hope for the best. What's up, S&T? I just got off work. You're still alive. How was the 4th? It was good. I was away on a camping trip, but it was all a good time. Well, it seems like it's already starting to come off the track, but I'm personally happy with that. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed joining me in on this live stream this evening. I wish the trains could have worked a little bit better, but, you know, that's just how it goes sometimes. So I think we'll finish things off there. Have a terrific evening, everyone. You forgot to operate the trolley car. You're right. Should run it on the inside loop. Signing off as a huge derailment occurs. I knew it would. I don't understand. Those cars were going around perfectly for a good portion of the live stream, and then they just all started popping off. But I think I need to do some repairs on my layout. Can be a little bit of a problem is during the summer months when the house becomes air conditioned, the track actually shrinks. It becomes colder down here. So there might be a bit of that going on, but who really knows? Anyways, I think we'll finish things off there. Have a terrific night, everyone.